Hello Capsuleers, and welcome to Order of the Black Dagger's Proteus Guide. We're going to start with a brief overview of the ship class, then we'll discuss fits and theory crafting, and finally we'll analyze some footage to show you how the ship works in action. So what is a Proteus? A Proteus is a T3 strategic cruiser, so it's a cruiser hull, which means that it uses cruiser-sized modules and guns. It is a T3, so it's a Tech 3 ship, which means that it has sort of special abilities, let's say. All of the Tech 3 hulls in the game do something unique. So the strategic cruisers have subsystems. Each one of these four subsystems has three options, and each one of these options gives you different bonuses, both like core system bonuses, so like percentage per level, and also role bonuses, which will sometimes just give you dramatically different options. These subsystems allow you to change your ship pretty radically. They'll allow you to change everything from your turret hardpoints to slot layouts for your mids and lows to drone bandwidth to abilities like cloaking while warped or interdiction nullification. So you can do a lot with these ships. You can fit them out in a lot of different ways. I cannot possibly cover every type of Proteus that you might want to use, and so in this guide we're going to be focusing on PvP Proteuses built for ganking. So now that we've got the overview out of the way, let's open up Pyfa and look at some fits. So the first fit we're going to look at is actually a shield buffer fit. So shield buffer fit isn't the first thing most people think of when they think of gank Proteuses. You typically think of an armor rep Proteus, which we will get to, but I do think it's worthwhile to talk about the shield buffer Proteus first, because it is a very good Proteus fit and it shouldn't be underestimated. So what are the benefits to a shield buffer like this? Well, in general, shield buffers allow you to keep relatively high EHP combined with lots of damage. So, on a normal armor up Proteus, you're going to gain these utility mids back, but you're going to lose these low slots to armor tanking mods. So with this fit, you have 42k EHP, and you're going to be doing over 1200 DPS. So that's a lot of damage, and that's a healthy amount of EHP. A lot of things that you'll decloak on. I mean, essentially how this goes is you decloak on something at 0, you lock it, and you start shooting it with overheated blasters, and you scram it. And if it's something big, you orbit it with your afterburner on. If it's something smaller, you wouldn't do that. But the point being here that when you're doing this much damage to something that you decloak on, they weren't expecting something to decloak on them, and now it has, and who knows how much attention they're paying to the actual game. If they're distracted, very quickly they're going to lose all of their shields, and they're going to be completely defeated before they've even locked you, because you're doing so much damage to them. It just seems like, oh my god, a T3 ganked me and now I'm dead, right before they're even dead. You're doing a massive ready check on someone when you uncloak on them in this ship. It's basically like, hey, are you really paying attention to the game and ready to do what your ship is designed to do? Because if you're not, good luck, you're going to die soon. The other major benefit of a buffer fit over an active fit is that there's no cap management, there's no rep management, you're not managing, heat on your reps and your cap booster and all this stuff. So this is being completely passive. The tank is easy to run. This is a very easy to fly ship. It requires very little management of really anything. You're managing your range from the target, you're managing the heat on your guns, and that's it, really. Those are the only two things you're managing. So it's just super easy to fly, does a ton of damage, doesn't succumb to cap pressure super easily, it has good EHP. it's definitely a winner. And these ships get even better when you have more of them, because your DPS is going to keep increasing by a multiple of this. I can't even look at this number and not laugh. It's going to keep increasing by a multiple of this number. So it's a good ship. It's even better as a group ship. So when you start flying multiple Proteuses, you're in Proteus gangs. This is a good ship for that. Also, as just kind of a one last side bonus on this fit, because we can run this core subsystem instead of the subsystem which gives you cap, which you need for your armor tank, you can run the scram range, or just the point range subsystem, which allows you to scram out to almost 17k. So that's pretty cool. So you might be wondering, if this shield buffer Proteus is so good, why would we even bother running an armor up Proteus like this? And the answer is really just that this is a better solo ship. It's harder to run, but over the long haul, you're going to tank more, and you're going to be able to fight against more serious combat ships who are prepared and ready to fire back at you. Also, this is pretty much this fit here is pretty much the peak of this Proteus. There's not much you can improve on it. Of course, you can add some faction mods, but the benefit from adding faction mods to a ship like this is going to be very, very small. You're going to not get that much more damage, and you're not going to get that much more EHP. So an armor rep fit, one, it's going to allow us to tank more over a longer time, if we can run our tank correctly and not blow up too quickly. And two, it allows for a lot of improvement if you're willing to spend more money. And we'll really get into just how crazy the numbers can get on ships like this. So what does our armor rep Proteus look like? Well, there are two main versions that I'm going to show you, two main base versions, and then each of those versions, there's different amount of money, basically, of ISK you can put into them to make them better. So this is the first kind of base armor rep Proteus that I would run. Now the slot layout for the mids, you get your afterburner, you get your scram, only 9k scram range now, sad, and you get a web. This web is really nice. I like having webs. Why do I like having webs? When you're trying to kill small things, they're very useful, just like keeping small things slow and hitting them. And also, really the main thing that I like the web for is if I'm trying to kill a fast cruiser hull. So like a Loki, if I don't have this web, a Loki is kind of scary, because even if I uncloak at 0 on my target, they're going to web me and afterburner away, and at some point they're going to be out of my gun range, kiting me, and there's just nothing I'm going to be able to do at that point because I didn't have a web. So I like having the web. It makes fighting things like that a lot less risky. The last mod you have here is your cap booster, which is critical for running your tank, right? You need this cap booster, very important. For the actual armor tank, the core of your armor rep fit is this dual rep setup. So you have a medium ancillary armor rep, and then you just have a standard medium armor rep. Now, having these two armor reps allows you a lot of flexibility. You can run just one of the reps, either one, right, depending on how much damage you're taking. You can run both the reps, you can overheat one of the reps, you can overheat both the reps. So you're going to be able to tank basically different amounts of incoming damage with running your reps differently, and the benefit to this is that you can extend the life of your cap boosters. So instead of just running your reps flat out all the time, you can actually rep for longer over a period of time if you need to by running these to the actual amount of damage that you're taking in, so that you're using less cap and you're not wasting reps. So that's one of the main benefits of this dual armor rep setup. The other main benefit is you just get more raw HP a second as long as your ancillary rep is up. So for the 8 cycles that your rep is going to be running, you're going to rep way more than you will with a normal dual rep setup. So if you look at the difference here, right, my normal rep is only repping 258 EHP a second, whereas my ancillary rep is doing 435. So it's repping a lot more. And when we overheat both of these mods, we can see that we're approaching 1000 EHP a second. If you uncloak on multiple people, or you get like counter ganked or something, or you're just fighting a battleship and you don't know how it's fit, and maybe it has webs and maybe it doesn't, you're going to be able to tank a lot of incoming damage with this basic fit for a period of time. And the cap is not even a problem here, because your cap's going to last 6 minutes. You're not going to be able to run your reps overheated for 6 minutes. So it's still a cheap fit, 366 mil Bifa says right now. You get a lot of EHP while you're shooting. If all goes well, it's not going to be a very long fight, and you still do a lot of damage. So it's a pretty good fit. The second version of our armor up fit is slightly different. We're dropping basically a mid and we're gaining a low. So we lose that web again, which means you maybe have a little bit less flexibility in what you engage or what is safe to engage. But you do gain quite a bit of EHP a second, because now we can put this second mem in here, and without heat we're tanking 840, as opposed to without heat we're tanking 600 and almost 700. So the more EHP you're repping without heat, one, it's going to be easier to run your reps. Your ability to just one rep versus running both of them is now much more serious, and you're going to have to manage your cap less. Everything is just going to be easier when you have more EHP a second. Having more EHP a second is very nice. It's a pretty good ship. Now, if you're willing to spend a little bit more money, I would say this is the kind of Goldilocks point, where our fit isn't crazy expensive. It's like 750 million ISK. So it's not crazy expensive. These T3s can easily be a billion ISK ship. From putting a little bit more money into the ship, we're going to get a lot back. Without heat, now we're talking about repping over 1000 EHP a second. So that's pretty crazy. And we're also talking about a cap stable fit with the cap booster running. Now if you add heat, you're still going to last with over 1400 EHP a second for over 3 minutes. This is a serious tank at this point. People are not going to expect you to be able to do this, and you're still putting out 850 DPS. So if we compare this to the blinged version of the other armor rep ship, we're going to start to see our version 2 of our armor rep ship. It's really going to start taking off compared to this one. The numbers are going to get very high very quickly. So where can we go from here? Well, if you really, like me, are not satisfied with this number yet, and you just I just want this number to be larger, please make the numbers larger, I have your back. So Abyssal Mods let us do some pretty crazy shit. Here is that V2 version fit with Abyssal Mods that I actually had and used on a Proteus. So this is a real fit. And without heat, just casually tanking almost 1400 DPS, no big deal. And when we add heat to this thing, it's a little crazy. We're almost at 2000 EHP a second for 3 minutes and 22 seconds. And you'll see that if you can get these numbers really high, like by themselves, when you add heat to them, they start getting a bit ludicrous. Now, I didn't actually run this Proteus in this fit. I ran it in this fit, so the V1. Now, it's still a nice ship like this, and you get a web. So this is what the ship that I actually ran was like. But it's not, the numbers just aren't as big. What can you say about it? I'm letting you guys know this because we're going to be watching a video later where I'm flying this ship and it blows up. So this is the ship that I was flying. This is the exact fit. Just as a kind of intellectual experiment here, I put together a perfect abyssal fit. If you had perfect stats on your repping, and you're using unstable, you got your A-type in here, everything is maxed on this fit. So you got the best mems, you have the best reps with unstable, abyssal. This is your theoretical maximum for this fit. And with heat, we get this number here. So over 2400 EHP a second. Now, this is not a realistic fit. You cannot get a ship like this. You can get ancillary reps, which are close to perfect, but you're never going to get an A-type unstable rep with perfect stats on it. It's just not going to happen. If you do, it's going to be many billions of ISK on contract. You can, on the other hand, buy armor reps like this. So I rolled this armor rep myself, right? So it just costs me the materials to roll in the roll, which is not cheap, but it's something you could do, and you could get lucky. And you don't have to run a super blingy A-type rep. You could run a B-type rep, you could run a standard rep, and Abyssal. You can buy these on contract. Kind of a nice feature about these reps, which is kind of a stealth feature, is they don't show up on your loss mail as any price. So it makes your ISK efficiency look very nice, and even though you probably spent 300 mil on this rep and maybe another 300 mil on this rep, it's not reflected in your price at all. It's like a stealth bling ship. It's pretty cool. Without being able to look at the modules themselves, no one will even know what your ship was capable of. So now that we've looked at all of our fits, let's get into some actual footage of combat. So you're going to see in this clip us warping on top of a rattlesnake. So we set up a bookmark on grid that made a straight line between the bookmark, the target that we were trying to get to, which is the rattlesnake, and a celestial that we could warp to. So you warp out to the celestial and you warp back to your bookmark at whatever range the target is from your bookmark, and you land right on top of them, just like here. So this is kind of the ideal situation. It's what you're trying to do. And now you approach the target and you decloak when you think that you're close enough to decloak without him getting away from you. So there are two of us here in this instance, and we decloak and we lock them up and get tackle on them. You start running your guns. I'm gonna try to orbit this guy at 1,000 since he's a big battleship, and I'm gonna at some point turn on my afterburner to help do that. There we go. And here the rats are really helping us. So this guy was fighting these rats, and these rats are pretty scary, and our combined DPS is enough to really just melt this guy. I mean, he just, falls apart when we start shooting him. So in this next clip, I found a Gnosis on station, which was, I saw it was burning outside of dock range right now to go to that wreck over there. And so I had a tactical above this station, so I pinged to my tactical, and then I pinged back down on top of the last wreck, basically, that I thought he was going to be able to reach. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put myself in between me and the wreck that he's trying to slow boat to. And by doing this, I basically put myself in a situation where I can uncloak on him and he's not aligned to anything, so it's going to be very difficult for him to escape me. So kids, don't slow boat off of station in your Gnosis. This is my advice to you. And now that he's locked and tackled, I mean, the only thing he can really do is burn off the gate, but I'm using a web in this Proteus, so this is sort of a nice benefit of having a web. If he didn't have him webbed, he might be able to just dock and station pretty easily here, but with the web, it's pretty much impossible. I'll be able to kill him before he gets back. And I think he's realizing this right now, and he eventually does, I think, shoot me back here. Yeah, so that by the time he decides, oh man, I can't get back to station, I gotta shoot this guy back, right? It's too late. It's been too late for a while now, you know. This is he is panicked, right? Is his problem. So far what we've been looking at has been mostly strategy into getting on top of people and just kind of showing you what the ship is capable once it is on top of someone. In this example, we're going to see a little bit more interesting combat. So I jumped through a gate and I saw an arbitrator and a hectate, and this was pretty interesting to me. So I scanned down the system trying to look for them. And eventually I do come across the both of them, and the hectate is warping out. And so I kind of figure the arbitrator is chasing the hectate. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I just keep on trying to chase this arbitrator. And, you know, neither of them have seen my ship yet, so they don't really know. This guy doesn't know I'm following him, right? But he's doing things that are very smart here. So he is staying aligned out. Every time I'm on field with him, he's always aligned out somewhere. So even if I was close enough to uncloak on him, he would warp out. So I kind of gave up at some point, and there's a jump cut here between that fast forwarded footage and this footage, where this was sometime later where I just, you know, I was sitting on a tactical on this gate, and I see this dude just on the gate going to Rex and stuff, and I'm like, well, okay, if he's gonna be dumb and go to Rex on the gate, I guess I can get him now. So I do my old, you know, setup and get close to him, get in between a wreck that he's trying to get to. The hectate comes back for some reason and just warps off. It's kind of interesting to watch. And we grab him right here. So to this guy's credit, he does actually start, you know, he locks me, he red boxes me fairly quickly. He starts nuding me, tracking, disruptoring me. He's, you know, got his disruptor on me. So he's doing things he's supposed to do here. And I'm gonna let this one play at full speed because I actually had to run. It takes him a while to like get real damage on me, but I actually did have to run my reps here. So I just kind of want to show you how I manage my reps. So I can see that I'm starting to get low. I know this guy's not gonna have a lot of damage, so I'm not too afraid about turning both my reps on. I know the ship that can't have that much damage, right? If it has 300 damage, it's a miracle. And so I know I only need to run the one rep. So I'm not gonna cap myself out here with him nuding me, running both my reps, right? Because I just don't need to. That's part of the flexibility of this fit. So I can kill him just running the one rep and managing like that, making sure I'm hitting my cap boosters when I need to. The hectate comes back. I was thinking I was just gonna warp off and, you know, just leave. But the hectate decides to like hero tackle me, so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess we could do this. I thought you were just gonna leave, so I wasn't even gonna bother to lock him because it's like he can align out faster than I can lock him. But you know, he's a brave soul, and you know, I salute him. So at this point, you know, my tank is not strained at all anymore. So in this next footage, we're going to see me try to fight this Tempest that I found. So I didn't really have any trouble getting on top of the guy. He was just sitting at this site, and it was pretty easy to get to him. The reason why we're going to watch this video is because he ends up killing me. So we're going to do an analysis into basically what I did wrong here. So start by approaching him. That's all cool. Everything's going great. Couple things I would say about decloaking on a ship like a Tempest here. So a Tempest is a battleship, and this Tempest is going to be close range setup. So it's going to have autocannons, and this is sort of a scary scenario for a Proteus. So it's a battleship with close range guns, and he should be doing around 900 DPS. That's probably about what his fit does, somewhere in that ballpark. Now, this is the version 1 of our armor tank, base armor tank Proteus. So if we remember overheated, it can rep over 900 DPS. So I still should be able to rep him here, but I need to know that we're talking about repping him with heat. So if I'm gonna fight this ship, I need to be prepared to run my entire tank. So I need to basically overload everything. I have to prep to overload everything. And as soon as he hits me with the web here, I need to, recognize that he has a web and that it's really on at this point. I mean, if he didn't have the web, it would be fairly easy to kill him because you could sig tank most of his damage and he'd be pretty harmless to you. But as soon as I see this web land, I need to recognize how serious the situation is. Basically, he's going to start doing a lot of damage to a webbed Proteus. You can see as I'm taking damage here, I'm just not getting my tank up fast enough. My reps aren't overloaded. My cap booster's not overloaded, so now I'm being neuted too, so I really need to overload my cap booster to make it cycle faster so I can get cap quicker. And eventually I do overload both my reps, but it's kind of too late at this point. I've taken too much hull damage, and I'm bleeding and I'm really struggling to catch back up. Once they're overloaded, you're going to see me stabilize much better though here than I was before. I really need to be running the tank like this the whole time to have enough time to kill him. You'll see that he does drop into hull, and I don't think that he was baiting me or anything here. I think I was just breaking his tank. And if I could have lived another, 10, 15 seconds, it might have been possible to have killed him. And I'm not sure how much damage I could have mitigated by doing all those things that I was talking about, but I think you could have mitigated enough to make it a much, much closer fight. So here we see a fleet of Nagas and some Vigils running one of these sites. And you can see here that they're aligned out back towards that station that Vigil just warped to. So if I were to uncloak on top of them, they're going to warp out. I mean, that's why they're aligned out like this. It's a pretty smart thing to do. Makes it harder to kill you. So I'm going to start off by using a bookmark trick here that we used in the first video on that rattlesnake. It's essentially the same bookmark trick, where I'm going to create a bookmark, and then I'm going to warp out to the place that they're aligned to. And I'm going to keep doing this until I'm closer to them. So once my line of bookmarks is done, and you can see here, I have this line of bookmarks. I've actually made it go out one past, kind of where I think they're going to be, so like the closest bookmark that I think is going to be from them. I went out one further, and I did this because they're either going to come back at the spot that they warped in from last time, which I basically saw was right there, or they're going to come back at that spot plus 100. Those are the two most common things for them to do, and I want to have bookmarks set up to be close enough to each of them to slow boat to their warp in so that I can get on top of them the next time. So I have to create this grid of bookmarks. I have to get close to the closest to where they're going to be, and then I have to wait for them to come back so I can see where they actually are. Now that they've come back, I can get on top of them. I'm going to pay attention to the distance that they are from me and where my bookmark is that I'm sitting on, and I'm going to double click past one of them, or past their warp in point basically. Now it's important not to align to them because they're going to warp off, and if you're aligned, you're going to be moving with them, so you're not going to get to their warp in spot. And two, if you're aligned and they warp off, you'll stop moving, so you'll lose where they were. And once we're on top of this spot, we're going to create our bookmark just to see basically how close it is, and we're just going to wait for them to come back. Now, I've moved myself a little bit above the bookmark just so that I don't get decloaked, because I was pretty sure I was very close, and I mean, I don't think I could have been closer really here. This was a pretty good bookmark. And now that I'm on top of them as they're warping in, they can't escape from me because they're not aligned yet. It'll take them too long to align, so I can catch this guy and kill him. It's actually funny, in these sites, I'm actually more afraid of the rats than I am the players. a lot of the time. There was a scram rat on field, and I was kind of terrified that it was going to scram me, but we end up getting out just fine. So in this next clip, we're going to watch me die again here. This one's pretty hard for me to watch because I die for very stupid reasons. So I start off by just making a bad call. So I tell the other guy that I'm with that we're going to primary the Oneros, because, you know, I'm thinking they have a Dracovac and Neros here. The Oneros is going to be tanking, is going to rep more than the Dracovac is going to rep the Oneros. And I know that T2 Logi is like sig tanking, like they sig tank a lot. But I'm thinking, like, you know, I have a web, I have, you know, tracking bonuses on this ship. I'm gonna be fine. So we spend way too long trying to shoot at this guy before we realize it's completely helpless, and I say to switch onto the Dracovac. Now, so far my tank is doing very well. As you can see here, I'm tanking them both. It hasn't really even been a problem. But as we switch over to the Dracovac, I make a critical error here, and I look at my health, and I try to get a little too smart for my own good. So I'm coming over to him, and I have to switch my tackle onto him. And this causes me to look at my health bar, and at the time I looked at it, it was completely full. And I was thinking, well, I'm just wasting, you know, reps here. I should shut off my ancillary rep, which is most of my healing, by the way. And I was thinking I would be fine, but of course I was not fine. So it takes me too long to turn my rep back on once I realize this was a mistake. And then I, you know, get into hull, and I'm still not overloading my reps till it's too late. My reps they don't catch overloaded. I die too quickly. If I had just kept running my reps, in fact, if I just started overloading my reps, even when I was going to run out of ancillary, I still would have had enough to tank this guy dry with overloaded reps before he died. I only die like a second before he dies. And we do end up getting both of these guys, so it's not the worst trade ever, but it was a little bit unfortunate considering this was completely avoidable if I just didn't click any buttons. So I'm going to show you another clip here where I end up dying. So I tackled this curse earlier and I knew it was stabbed, and I saw this Loki try to tackle this curse, and I was like, well, I guess this is my chance. I don't know why I decloaked so far away from him. That was really stupid, but these guys tend to not be the greatest in my experience, so I wasn't actually that afraid of uncloaking on him this far away. Now, I make mistakes here, just like in all these other videos. I should have sent my drones on the Hound at the very least. I probably should have killed the Hound first and then went to the Loki. You're going to see that they're going to uncloak stuff on me and warp things onto me and gank me here. And I'm going to be basically repping through their gank, which is why I'm showing you this video, just to show how the tank kind of can be run if you actually hit the buttons right. And it let us tank long enough to kill this Loki. So I was pretty happy about that, but really I could have sent my drones on the Hound and either he would have died or had to warp out, and I could have killed the Loki then after that, and I would have had more EHP, and so, because the Hound would have been dead and wouldn't have done as much damage to me, and then I would have been able to kill their Flycatcher. So I really should have been able to kill their Hound, their Loki, and their Flycatcher, but I was actually just pretty happy here, killing the Loki and tanking through them. Now this is that Abyssal ship I was talking about. So this is that ship that overloaded. This ship can tank 1500 DPS. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm overloading and I'm tanking a lot, really. And the Loki dies. I was pretty happy. And I die shortly after. But, you know, it was not an inexpensive Loki, so I didn't feel too bad about this one. So this is the last clip I'm going to show you guys. So I found this Proteus in this drone site, and I'm a little ways off from him, so I'm going to make a bookmark, and then I'm going to warp away, and I'm going to warp back to the bookmark. It's my typical move here. And as I'm doing this, I see that he cloaks. So that was pretty interesting that he cloaked on site like that. It might mean that he's warped off, or it might mean that he's just sitting cloaked up on this site, which, as you see here, is the case. So I warped back and I waited for a while, and eventually he decloaked on field. So I try to approach this guy. Now, I'm a little bit afraid that he might run away from me. Like, this guy's doing PvE in a Proteus, so I don't know if he's interested in fighting. So I wait till I'm in scram range to uncloak on him just in case. And he was aligned out, so I sort of expected him to warp off, but to his credit, he didn't. And we start fighting here, and from my side, it's fairly uneventful here. I see kind of how much damage, I can kind of gauge how much damage he has based on how slow my shields are going down. So I just start off with the 1 rep. And in this case, it turns out not to be a gigantic mistake. Now, we're going to look at this guy's fit here, and we'll see basically what he's running here, and if he had a chance, if he was shot at me earlier. It takes him a long time to target me. So if he had targeted me earlier, would he have been able to get me? So here's this guy fit in Pytha. So we can look at kind of his numbers and what he's working with here. He's working with a single rep setup, and he's got a lot of bling. This is an expensive ship. This ship is even more expensive than my basic blinged out ships. And why is this? Well, it's because he's running so many faction mods. He's running the C-type energized membrane. He's running the C-type armor rep. He's running the Shadow Serpentis mag stab. It's not worth running this module. I'll just put that out there. You're not going to get enough DPS for it to matter. He's running a true Sanchez multi-spectrum energized membrane. He's got faction mods in his mid, so he really doesn't need any of these 3 faction mods. They're not doing anything for him. So to start with, his fit is kind of needlessly expensive. Now, he's doing some interesting things in the rigs. I didn't really talk about my rigs, and you can look at them, and if someone's interested in me elaborating on why I picked the rig layout that I do, you can maybe say something in the comments, and we can talk about it. But this is an interesting rig layout. It's not even that bad. So he's plugging his explosive hole right here, which isn't a bad idea. The way that I plug my explosive hole is with reactive armor hardener, which will fill the hole if it's being shot, basically. He's got a Trimarch on here, so he's got to have more EHP. So he's at 2700 EHP versus this ship, which is at 2700. So he doesn't even really have more EHP. In fact, if you were to take this off, what does it even do? So it does give him some buffer. So I don't even think that running a Trimarch like this is necessarily wrong. But this tank layout, all we have to do is look at the numbers here to realize that this tank layout is not working for him. How much is he repping? Well, if he overloads, he's only repping 414 EHP a second. Now, what about his damage? Well, if we overload his guns, he'll be doing 950, so he has 100 more DPS than me. That's nice, but I wasn't even using my powerful rep. So it didn't really, the 100 extra DPS that he would have had over me wasn't going to help him here. The other problem with this guy's fit is he's not running a cap booster. He doesn't have space for a cap booster with his fit, and so he's not running it, which means he can't actually run his tank for very long. If he's overheating his guns and his reps, which he would basically have to do to beat me, he lasts 57 seconds. Now, to be fair, this fight didn't last 57 seconds. So he wasn't out of cap yet, but this is a really bad idea if you plan to fight for longer than this amount of time. If you plan to stand up against multiple targets and try to get some work done, this fit is gonna, you're gonna lose all your cap and it's gonna fall short. So that has been a Proteus guide by order of the Black Dagger. Hope you guys liked the video. Hope you learned something new. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And with that, I'll see you next time. Fly dangerously.